we move on to a very exciting panel discussion about to be or not to be an entrepreneur. I know many of us think that way, and I'm sure after today's discussion, few of the doubts will be cleared. To start the panel, I would like to invite Dr. Parul Ganju. Parul is the co-founder and executive director of Ahmune Biosciences. The vision of the bioscience is to redefine the dermatological therapeutics market by carrying out discovery oriented innovative research to provide new therapies to fill up the void in this space. Dr. Parul Ganju, after completing her PhD in skin biology from National Institute of Immunology, Delhi, she became DST Inspire faculty at CSI Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology. Dr. Parul Ganju.
Yeah, thank you. A very good morning. I think it's good afternoon already. So, very good afternoon to everybody. It's always a pleasure to be at the beautiful IISER campus, especially since the last 4 days, since the campus is buzzing with a lot of energy, thanks to the postdoc symposia. So, all of you who are sitting here today, I'm sure you've heard, you've got a chance to interact with and hear a lot of people talk about academic career. You had wonderful couple of talks in the morning itself with Dr. Nair and Dr. Galande. It was absolutely fantastic talks, and that must have helped you take a call on what is it that you want to do in the next phase of your career. Now, in this last panel discussion of this entire very successful event, if I may call it, is the panel is here to give you a new perspective on an alternate career path. Which is of self-employment. So, this alternate career path is for those people who are really driven by innovation and who are ready to take huge risks. Yes, I am talking about entrepreneurship, and as I said, it's the path of being self-employed. And as you just heard, the big question is whether you should or should not get into this field. And to give you a few answers, we have with us a fascinating group of people with us who've undergone a very interesting journey, and they'll talk about their journey today. Along with them, we have an expert in entrepreneurship who's really guided almost hundreds of entrepreneurs to take the next step by heading the incubation center, who will also talk about his experiences. So without further ado, let me just call upon stage the esteemed panelists. I'll start with Dr. Shambhavi Nayak. She is a founder of CloudCrate, a startup that focuses on reducing time that is spent by the Indian life science researchers on procuring lab supplies by providing inventory management solutions and free quotation services. Welcome, Shambhavi. Please, people, give her a good hand, big hand. So next we have Dr. Sudhendra Rao, a physician scientist, a very rare breed in India, who is affiliated with the Organization for Rare Diseases as a research advisor, and also he is the chief scientific officer of Bangalore-based startup Onsa Research Innovations. Please, Dr. Rao. Next we have Dr. Srinath, who's a founder at MD at Bangalore-based Genofi Biotech that offers alternate animal model systems for biotech companies before they venture into the risky preclinical studies. Great to have you here, Dr. Srinath. Please welcome Dr. Rohan Kamath, who founded the Viravax lab for developing platforms for gene therapy and has now moved on to heading the discovery group at Immunil Therapeutics, which is involved in cellular immunotherapies, affordable in making cellular immunotherapies affordable in India and the subcontinent, a really big need of the hour. Welcome, Rohan. Again, a Bangalore based, so it seems a lot of Bangaloreans are sitting over here. So please, Puneites and other places, you have to buck up. You know, you have to be one of the in the next panel, you have to be here. So to help those of you who want to be here next time, we have Dr. Premnath, who's the director of Venture Center, a technology business incubator, which is right there in your neighborhood from IISER Pune. And that's a place which I am very proud to be associated with. He is also a scientist at NCL and has helped co-found 2 startup companies in the medical device arena in Pune. So welcome everybody. So again, I'll just bring back the thing. The reason that all of these people are here is to hopefully inspire many of you sitting to start thinking about taking up entrepreneurial ideas. When I say entrepreneurial ideas, I don't necessarily mean starting a startup company. But if you can inculcate that entrepreneurial mindset in anything that you do, whether it is academics, whether it is scientific writing, whether it is the IP field, I think that is what the crux of this panel is. And I really encourage most of you to come up with your doubts that you have if you want to take this field up, because all the people are here for you. So let's just start with the formal set of questions and conversations. So this is really not a question, but it's mostly my curiosity as to knowing, because I know that all of you come from PhDs and postdoc backgrounds, and you know, the traditional path is to either get into academic field or to get into the industry. You guys deliberately did not choose that. You have digressed from the classical path per se for a postdoc graduate. So what is it that made you do that? I mean, did you really have that eureka moment? You know, you jumped out of the part of the. What is it that made you digress? I want to start with the youngest entrepreneur, Shambhavi first.
I'm the youngest? Okay.
Yes, you are.
That's new one.
Trust me.
Okay. So I did not have a eureka moment. I did my PhD in the UK. I was doing a postdoc at NCBS for 3 years. I was in the first year of a new 5-year contract. And it slowly built up. So what CloudKit basically does is, what we want to do is bring down the supply chain time for products that are used in laboratories in India. And I started thinking about the idea, but leaving academia was a big decision, particularly because I was in like a really good place. And it took me about 8 or 9 months to fight with myself and say that, no, I really want to do this. I really want to move out of academia and address this problem, because I felt the problem was big. And I remember going to this conference once where Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw had come, and she spoke about how we work with suboptimal resources in India. And I'm like, look, we all know that. We all wait, we all talk about the fact that we have to wait for 2 months for antibodies to come. Why don't we just do something about it? And that just led me to say that, okay, I was in a good place because my co-founder, who's also my husband, Pushkar, came from a supply chain background. So like dinner conversations usually ended up like, Arey yaar, this order I had to follow, but nothing came, the supplier isn't picking up the call, I don't know what to do. And finally he was like, let's just sort this out, because we can't keep on having dinner over this every now and then. So that's how CloudKit was born.
So it's your own need that led to the building of CloudKit in some manner.
Yeah, and it was like, you could see it all around. Like, and I was thinking, if places like NCBS has to struggle, I can just imagine what IIT Dharwad will have to go through. So if you want to improve science in this country, it has to come from within the scientific community. And if we can't get reagents, we can't do science. So
I think that's a very good point that you've made. It has to come from within, and that is what most of the people, you know, they have to feel the need to come up and start something new. So thanks. So what about you, your journey? You are a physician turned a researcher turned industry person. So it's, please tell us more. Why this sudden transition? I mean, I've not heard a lot of doctors, they just want to mint money, you know, see people, and you have taken a different route. How come?
It's probably because of my MBBS. And during my MBBS days, I was actually very active in the NGO sector as well, because doctors are generally part of a lot of NGOs which go and try to help the marginalized, and there is the requirement. I was associated with NGOs since the beginning. So that thing was there on the back of my mind, and I also tried taking the regular path of MBBS, then going for MD and other things. And there I ended up being in NIMHANS, not as a patient but as a doctor, working with neurological disorders in children. And what struck me is the reality that doctors worry about how to diagnose a patient. And after the diagnosis is done, especially in neurology, there are very few things they can actually offer. So that is the reality. It not knows, and the thing is because one, there is no availability of treatments. Most of these are, there is some genetic issue that's in the background, or treatments that are made outside India, they are unaffordable, and that reality has not changed. So that means that we need to, if we should address the amount of population that is present in India, a lot of people don't have money, access, affordability, health inequality everywhere. Instead of trying to ask everybody's help, we have to stand up for our own people.
Absolutely.
So that is how after my MBBS, I decided that I won't take this regular path of MD, DM, and everything. My wife is a neurologist, but I I went into neuroscience. I did my PhD in neuroscience, and then there also I wanted to get more opportunity, understanding in drug development, newer therapies, gene therapy, cell therapy, those sort of things. So I did my postdoc in University of Miami, and when I came back, I got the opportunity to get into industry, start a completely new type of industry, which is already so much defamed. You go to any nook and corner of India, they will offer you stem cell therapy for 40,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees. And if you try understanding, Shambhavi has a very interesting story. If you try understanding what stem cell therapy, what exactly is it, you will just go kaput, like, what? Are you still selling it despite government banning all of these? But
You're
there
the new
there is a potential which needs to be exploited. So we want to do, because coming from the science background, we want to do it in the right way, and to also help people trying addressing. So these are multiple reasons why I ended up where I am.
So wonderful. I mean, I think you rightly pointed out it is a science-based people who can drive the innovations further, because there's a huge lack of knowledge not only in the diagnosis field and the drug development field, but as you said, even making drugs affordable in a country like India, where you have a huge population in the rural. So Rohan, you have actually, you're right now doing exactly that, trying to make drugs affordable, but you started off with the discovery platform of gene therapy and all. So what has been your journey like? And
So I'll tell you that I'm not an entrepreneur anymore. Okay, so that's something that I can actually, being on this panel, I think I can tell you what maybe to not do. Okay, or
That will be
the
extremely
mistakes that I made or we made, which is what led to the closure of our ViraVex labs. So that's one thing. Coming back to where and why we started off, neither we did have any eureka moment, but throughout my PhD, we were making these viral vectors, and one way for my boss to make sure that the system that we are developing works everywhere was that he just collaborated with his friends across India. So, all these viruses, viral vectors were utilized in different model systems. They worked well. We got publications. After my PhD, I could still see that there was a demand for it. And I realized, instead of publication, let's make money out of it. And that time when we started, and I don't think even now, there are many companies which offer engineered viral vectors to the community. That was our reason why we started off ViraVex Labs. 4 years in the process, things happened because of which we couldn't take off. We were on the runway for a long time, and then we decided, it's better to shut shop and move on. So yes, developing platforms for gene therapy, and now what I get to do is in immunotherapeutics, we are utilizing this lentiviral vector platform to make CAR T cells. So I continue my journey in viral vectors from my PhD days till even now. So that's the good part about it. I'll let the others introduce, and then maybe we can take questions, and I'll tell you what went wrong with us. So I might be shooting down a few things here.
yeah, but even to decide when to shut down is a very important point.
It's
That is actually an entrepreneurial mindset when I was talking about.
It's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
You should know where the line is to be drawn. So possibly 2 years ago, we had drawn a crisp line that April 2019, if you're not flushed with funds, and I mean to say flushed with funds, we did not want another 50 lakhs, another 1 crore. We needed a few crores to ensure that we now take the next step, which was an exponential growth, make a big team, put different processes in the system to ensure even better growth. And we had drawn that line, and it was so crisp for me and my founder that 1 week before, I took a call. I told the team 1 week was a sad week, but that first of that April, we started closing operations. We paid dues to everybody. All our vendors were happy. We ensured that my team was employed. Okay, we ensured that they had 2 months of salaries given. I know of big companies who do not do that. Okay, they just shut shop. They say, sorry, we don't have money to pay you. So when we closed doors, we ensured that everybody in the team was happy. And that was really important for me as a founder to have a happy closure to it. So when I come and talk about it, I don't feel sad, or I don't have somebody cussing me there saying that मुझे पैसा नहीं दिया इसने last month का. So that decision was also extremely planned and well executed. So I feel glad that we could do that as well. I mean, we stuck to our ground as well. Yep, that's
So-
it. And we'll have
So
to-
really the three major points of your journey has been that you need to be very decisive, you have to be responsible for your actions,
Absolutely.
and you have to execute everything, whatever you've decided at.
Yep.
So these are the three
I mean,
key
everybody
points you should
pivots
keep
in terms
mind.
of, you know, what you're doing and all, but there are certain crucial factors that have to be always there as your first couple of points. Okay, funds, growth of your team, execution of your programs, keeping your people happy.
Yeah.
Rest, plans change, but they all have to feed in these 3-4 things. Ethics is something which I don't even have to talk about. They are
Yeah,
but taken. So keeping these 4 points, we ensured that, you know, we never, that they were there on the board all the time in front of us. Okay, everything has to feed to these. If not, don't encourage things ahead.
Great, great.
Yep.
So Dr. Srinath, I mean, you've had, I think, one of the most diverse backgrounds of all the people sitting here. You've been in environment, you've been in molecular biology, you've been an undergrad teacher. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey before we move on?
Yeah, so
If you-
to
if you
start
want,
with,
you
the
can-
first question was there a Eureka moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was not a Eureka moment. If you remember, the experiment was removal of water, right? In my case, the boat was sinking into the water. So I had to do something in my life because at the age of 44, I was supposed to do something else. No one will offer you a job at the 44, be it academic sector, be it industry. But then I started to talk with startups, and then I found there is an opportunity, there is a gap in terms of preclinical research work. Like Parul said when I spoke to her that wish I had met you, I could have done some work with you. And the same thing with many startups which say, okay, fish can be a model. I say yes. So because one, they have lack of grant because startups have this problem, but they want to achieve more. They cannot go to the rodent straight away, which is like expensive. So I saw business opportunity there, and which will give me more, liking to, give services to others. So that's how I started with the company.
Okay, great. So, Dr. Premnath, you've heard a lot of postdocs, ex-postdocs talk about their journeys into entrepreneurship. You are a scientist first, and you've also set up one of the most successful incubator centers where you help a lot of people into entrepreneurship. You are a co-founder. You've co-founded 2 companies as well. So you've been onto 2 boards. Currently, you are actually in 2 boards. You've made the center self-sustainable. That's a huge, huge commendable feat that you've achieved. What do you think is the difference between academic employment, if as a scientist, and in entrepreneurship? What are your views about it?
Okay, so let me first just tell you a little bit about myself
Yeah.
because so my commitment is to technology. Okay, I'm unfortunately called a scientist, but my commitment is to technology, right? I do science because it results in technology. Okay, otherwise I'm not interested. Okay, quite honestly, that's how I look at it. So the first thing is, when my commitment to technology is to the extent that I want to see products and services in use. Okay, that's my orientation. In the sense, it doesn't satisfy me if I've done something in the lab and talked about it and nobody ends up using it. Okay, that has been my orientation for a very long time, and that is how I think. So the reason when I finished my PhD and came back to India, I chose to work in CSIR for the reason, and I refused a couple of opportunities in academia because I think that I wanted to focus on technology development and taking it to market, right? And my interest is in biomed products. And when you decide that you want to be in biomed, the greatest kick you get out of it is that you see patients use your product. Right? Now, if that doesn't happen, you know, you can throw up your arms and cry about it and say that somebody else will come and do it for you, or you can decide to do it yourself, right? So that's how I have gotten into all of this. We started, I was very lucky that during my PhD, range of products went into the market, got commercialized by one of the largest players in orthopedics, and it all happened in a span of 18 months, you know, and this was in the US. When I came back here and started building some of these products, the first one took us few years, and taking it to market was such a pain. And even more bothersome for me was the fact that, so at that time, there was no provision for scientists to create companies in CSIR. Okay? And what was the problem I had was that I could license it to a company, but they did not share the vision of the person who is building some of these things, right? And very often you have this story that you have these small companies who take a technology and never build any innovation capacity. So when the technology runs out of steam, they are also dead. So these are the typical Indian small, medium, micro enterprises. They are different, by the way, from startups. I define startups and entrepreneurial ventures different from some of the micro, small enterprises and also even the lifestyle businesses. Okay, I'll explain that a little if I have time. But the point is that when you work on something, say for 5 years, you would like to see something much larger come out of it. Okay, question is, how do you make that happen? Okay, and if you take a typical academic position, maybe they'll give you a few crores of grant, right? But when it comes to, say, investing 20 crores, 100 crores, do you think they're going to invest that in your idea in academia? It's not going to happen, right? So let's be realistic, right? All parties have to be incentivized to deliver results. Even the government, when it's investing large money, will say we'll give it as a loan, or we'll give it as matching funds, or we'll give it as equity, right? So if you want resources to power your own ideas, in my opinion, there's no other way than, doing it with entrepreneurship in mind, okay? And I don't think there's any other opportunity there other than doing that. Or else you have to trust somebody else with your baby, right? And that's up to you to do that. So the one thing I want to point out, since it's an audience of postdocs, please be wary of the fact that you have spent all your lives in academia, okay? And it's like a small fish, it's like a fish in a pond, trapped in a pond. You glorify your professors, advisors, and whatever. You glorify that peer recognition that you get, the papers you publish, and all that stuff, Believe me, outside world cares a damn about it, okay? So they might be very polite with you. They might say great things, wow, good, give you a pat in the back, and say fantastic things about you, right? But at the end of the day, what matters is what impact you had, okay? So even academics need to start thinking about how are they going to deliver impact from their science, right? And the vehicles which will deliver impact. So even if you are a scientist or a researcher or a professor in a university, you have to think about how that work that you have done will be amplified into impact outside. And you will have to work with people who are focused on impact and not on just the creative juices flowing in the early stages. And those people will be the entrepreneurs of whatever kind. Could be driving not-for-profits, could be driving for-profits, doesn't matter. They will be entrepreneurial in that sense. They will look at the end point and take it there all the way, and thanks to them, you will deliver impact, okay? And this is the case universally. In the past, in the US, there was a time when, you could be a professor in a university and many large corporations would seek you out for specific ideas. To some degree, it happens even now in limited pockets in the US, but a lot of those corporate R&Ds and all those are gone now. Even Harvard has to look at startups as the way to deliver impact, or an MIT has to do that, right? So I think it's time people sort of wake up and do that. The first thing we did, so it was in the interest of that we looked at ways to create an ecosystem to support this transition. And that's how Venture Center was born. right? So we were looking at ecosystems for innovation, especially rich ecosystems needed for science-based innovations, okay? And how do we take ideas to market? And believe me, it's not as simple as what, at some point you have to look at so many things besides just the science, right? You have to look at how you'll arrange money, where are the right people, different skill sets, how are they going to even know that you exist, how are you going to bring them to the table, how are you going to incentivize them, right? What is their motivation to work with you? What are the advanced facilities you're going to use? Where is that going to come from? All these things, or IP issues, for example, you have to know enough about it, you have to engage the right people to work on it. All this has to come together, right? And that is the vehicle that makes it possible is a startup, okay? Or a company of some kind, right? So that's what we wanted to create, an ecosystem which supports all of this. Just one last point before I just want to tell you that I told you that, if you want resources to build your own ideas, you have to look at vehicles which make it possible, and a startup is one of them. You can also, Parul talked about, self-employment, but that's one goal, okay? In the sense, it happens. In my opinion, there are certain kinds of businesses which are lifestyle businesses, okay? They will employ you, but never scale, okay? Never be very large. Those are also small companies, they are new businesses, but they are not the entrepreneurial ventures. Entrepreneurial ventures have to look at a much larger vision and raise money for it, okay? The exciting thing about that is that it allows you to build your idea of what is to be done in the future. And that also means that you have to be pretty stubborn and clear that what you're doing is fairly right, okay? You have to have that commitment to that future, that you can do it, and there'll be a lot of people who will tell you that you're on the wrong track. So it's a lonely journey also. It is not something which, will be, even your parents will tell you that, look at your neighbor, they're doing so much better. Why don't you think of, how about that car over there? How come you're struggling still? And so on and so forth, okay? So be prepared for a lonely journey if you're looking at some of those ideas, but it's exciting, okay? Because it's your idea, right? And people are putting resources behind you. There are people who are betting on you, okay? And it's not that they're doing it foolishly, right? They think that you are capable of delivering on some of those things. It may or may not happen, there is a risk, right? But then, all the guys you remember today and celebrate are the guys who made it happen. So if you're not in the race at all, then you'll never be there, right? So it's a question, it's a choice you have to make, right? You can be, it's a great opportunity for young people, in my opinion. If you can take the risk, do it. At some point, as he said, you have to take a call whether, you can take that idea further or not. But believe me, even if you have failed in that particular project, you have learned so much. And if you're closed nicely as he has done, the next guy will bet on you because you know what it takes to build such a company, right?
From your mistakes.
So I think stop.
One thing I'd like to tell you about the continuation of what he said, that the 4 years of experience that I had was fantastic. I mean, one is the network that I've built, and something that was also discussed yesterday about, networking, finding for jobs. We are having this whole meeting as our career, to chalk out our career paths, and something that was very important that happened over the last 4 years is the network I built, okay? So when I shut shop and I was looking for jobs, our company incubated in CCAMP, which is a incubator fairly similar to something like Venture Center. There are companies, lined up on a floor. So when I told my friends that, things are not going well, we are shutting shop, first of all, there was a very nice support system, okay? So they were like, no, it's okay, these things happen. The next thing was, okay, so what do you want to do next? Okay, I'll connect you with this, I'll connect you with that. So I really did not have to, post for a job anywhere. I just thought about what my next move was. So happened in a matter of, I think a month, I had an interview lined up. I met the person, 1 week, I was on board. It was magic. It took some time to sink in, but I realized that it was all the effort of the last 4 years, and it was also the relations I built over the last 4 years. Okay, people are happy to recommend me. People are happy to call me back. They're like, okay, when you move on next, let us know, we'll think what is to be done. So that 4-year journey was also a learning experience, as you mentioned. So, of course, that was not my aim to learn. Learning happens by the side, but that was the whole thing that spanned over the last 4 or 5 years, the networking. And I'm stressing on this networking because, again, yesterday, point was raised, again today, every opportunity, do not leave an opportunity unturned to network. It will help you to go to your next step, whatever it is.
So you talked about learning, and you talked about over the 4 years that you've learned. Have you ever felt that, as Dr. Premnath pointed out, that as an academician you are just a small fish in a big, you are just confined to an area? Have you ever thought that being from the academics background, the technical background, and running a business has ever hampered your running a company? And is that the reason? Do you think that you would have done things differently? Maybe have a master's in business administration per se before you would have started?
No, for this particular question, primarily because I never wanted to be in academics. I had mentioned that yesterday too. So there was no way that I was going to go that way. It was always going to be my thing, or maybe join somebody else's company, which I am doing as of now. I don't think an MBA is very crucial or necessary to, I didn't think that it was, maybe that would have helped, or maybe this would have helped. I personally feel what would have helped is a previous stint in the company, to understand the needs of the company, to understand what companies want. And I think the point that he made now makes a lot of more sense to me when you ask me this question, because I moved on from an academic lab to a startup. Okay, so I took some of my thoughts, I was processing them. We were actually a service company, so we were also making revenues. So not that we were not making any revenues, but what is extremely important is your tech has to be aligned with the market need, which is where you want to sell. Now, it may happen that your tech is not aligned in India. Fair enough, find your partner somewhere. Or make your tech, or align your tech to the market need. Okay, so we were making viral vectors. Our primary client was researchers sitting in academic labs. I got most of my projects from there. But we all know that academic labs, when they are taking services, they haggle. Okay, they are not ready to pay the fair price. We were young. We were ready to offer it at low prices with tiny profit margins. That burnt us down. We found one corporate client, we got a good project, we were going well, but the margins had to be big enough for us to, accrue and go up, which did not happen. So my thought process now is finding more of those corporate clients was more important than serving 10 of the academic labs. Never saying that we could have served not served the 10 academic labs. What was important is finding that alignment. And that is something which is very important to figure out. How do you want to grow? Where do you want to be? How do you want to be aligned? Finding that absolute alignment is super, super important. Otherwise, it's like an academic lab. I'll do my research. And honestly, I'm pretty sure you've seen zillions of these. I was one of them. This idea is so great, it will sell. I know there is a buyer. Can you identify the buyer? No, I know he's sitting there. Can you identify? Can you tell me that name? Not yet, I'll come tomorrow.
So this is a big question, right? How is it that you know that an idea is worth taking a risk into? Is there a specific, can you rate ideas in terms of a 10-pointer, or, how do you do that? I mean, I'm sure people who are sitting here, I have 10 ideas right now which I want to start a company with. But what is the idea that I need to go forward with? I mean, how do I identify it?
Yeah, when I started, I thought my customers are big corporates which have library of molecules. It's the other way of Rohan. Rohan thought academics, and then he realized what's the next thing. I was thinking of corporates. But then I realized why corporate will put faith on me. They have resources. Then in fact, startups came and started to ask what kind of services you provide. And then I realized my actual customers are startups. And then subsequently, academicians who have 1 or 2 molecule, or some of them who just publish just with the in vitro data with cell line. I can give them extra edge to think their publication can go by 1 factor more or not. Or there are many other government, apart from government, this is the private sectors. They don't have a setup for animal studies or cell line studies. They can give me their molecule and I give them an output. They can know whether they can go for next round of grant writing based on their data. So that's what I felt in that.
So identifying the right set of
Yes.
people to go for.
So you have to enter into it unless you don't put your foot down into the water, you don't know the temperature. The moment you get to it, you get a tune of it, how it works with you in the environment.
So, Shambhavi, have you ever felt your academic background has been a hindrance to what you've been doing? You wanted to do
So-
things differently?
I immediately jumped into a business incubator, right? So we started CloudCrate and we got incubated at IIM Bangalore. So we got a lot of business advice straight on when we were still in an idea phase. And that really, really helped. I don't think I would have asked a lot of questions of myself because I think like everybody else, I thought I knew what I was doing. We burnt a lot of money trying to first build an Amazon-like marketplace because we thought, hey, marketplace are sexy, everyone likes to shop online, so scientists will buy stuff online, and that did not work. Then we thought, okay, we'll do an app because hey, everyone has a mobile, everyone wants an app. That did not work. We now work on WhatsApp. It would have cost us zero money right at the beginning to work on WhatsApp, but we took the long detour to come and figure that out, which was a big learning curve for us. What IIM helped was asking those questions at every point of time that are you going in the right direction? Is it worth your money to be doing this or not? The first thing they made us do was build a customer profile. And not like academic lab, but academic lab with a purchase office or not, academic lab with a procurement team or not. Where does their funding come from? How are they going to pay you? Does their funding come on time enough that they can pay you at the correct time? So they made us ask so many questions which I don't think I would have otherwise asked. And the other thing that IIM really helped us was, so I went through a Goldman Sachs program. If there are women in this audience who would like to apply, the program runs annually. It changed nature a little bit, but what they do is they pick 10 to 20 entrepreneurs every year to graduate. You're then incubated at IIM together, which means you grow together, which means you learn from each other's experiences. That was tremendously useful for us as well, because there were a diverse set of women who were doing very different things from what we were doing, but it helped us grow together. And I could learn a lot from what they were applying to their business, so I could come out of my academic mindset a little easier. And the biggest thing I liked about IIM is that every Tuesday we had to go and give a report of what we were doing. Not having a boss on your head is like crazy, because you can do whatever you want. It's easy to get distracted. It is easy to say, I'll do this tomorrow. It's easy to say, oh, I wanted to cook paneer butter masala today because, hey, I feel like eating it. And that kind of helped me get back to focus that, no, this is my business. I have to run this for a purpose. And just having those Tuesday meetings initially helped a lot to bring in discipline. So those three things really helped. So I would encourage you guys, if you're thinking about doing a startup, please come and talk to an incubator. They're tremendously useful. At least IIM Bangalore has sessions on Friday where you can write in if you have an idea, and they will allow you at least one session of free mentorship to figure out if your idea works or not.
Yeah, you have one person from an incubator right here, so you can anytime, over lunch and just talk.
Yeah, I have some flyers also in
Yeah,
case people want it.
Publish.
Yeah.
I wanted to add.
Yeah, please, Dr. Ram.
Yeah. So, I mean, I personally, for my journey, being an academician is a boon because I regard PhD not as a degree. PhD is far more than a degree. It gives you, it's like a lifeboat with you all the time. It gives you a huge amount of, life skills, and that you can actually do transfer. But what needs to be done is the efforts, whether it is a startup, or for-profit, non-profit, it needs to be rooted in a cause. And for me, the cause is patient. And to give you an example, whenever I go to any sort of conferences which is held for rare diseases, I work for Organization for Rare Diseases as a scientific advisor as well. So patients in India, patients come to me, patients' parents, and they say, we have 20 lakh rupees, we have collected 20 lakh rupees in our group. Can you get a drug for us? Can you get a treatment for us? And these are rare diseases for which there are no treatments available, and treatments which are available outside India are unaffordable. So there is an unmet medical need, a huge requirement, And this is a booming opportunity for R&D sector in India to actually put a great focus, and Government of India and lot of opportunities in incubators. It's so much things are available, but it needs to be rooted in a cause. And most of the times we make a company and then go search for, okay, whom do you want to sell this product to? That is never a problem for me, because those who want to buy the product come to us. But the problem is that we are not equipped enough to solve everybody's problem.
Of course.
We have to again do the
You
prioritization.
can do your bit.
So there, I think one of the ways I would want to answer that question is to make one modular approach, and to number two is to make a product which can be applied across multiple rare diseases.
Right.
Can I just comment a little bit on your question? So, by the way, please don't mistake me. I didn't mean, I think academia, your experience in academia is a great asset to you as long as you don't let the baggage come and bother you. Okay, so let me explain that a little bit. Most startups that you hear about and you are sort of, you find so exciting, you will find are driven by some kind of foresight, right? There's some foresight of what is going to be important in the future, and you're working towards it, and people believe that and are willing to resource fund you and so on and so forth, right? Now, that foresight, where does it come from? I mean, that you have to know, at least be aware of the latest developments that are happening, okay? Be it in the understanding of problems or in the understanding of tool sets and solutions that you're building, okay? Maybe a latest tool that you have developed, maybe CRISPR, okay? Or maybe a problem that you have understood of how a particular disease happens and so on and so forth. That foresight, right? I think you should be leveraging your academic background and the fact that you're working on cutting edge research, hopefully, to get to that.
Absolutely.
Now, that is your edge. See, if it was all about how much money you're investing and so on and so forth, then the businesses would be started by the Tatas and Birlas, right? Why would you have an opportunity, right? So you, as a first generation entrepreneur with only ideas and maybe some foresight, have potential to build something only because of that, right? So it is a great asset, but it comes with certain baggages, which I want to point out to you, okay? One is that we tend to glamorize an academic environment, okay? Please be wary of that. It's largely because you have only been exposed to that, okay? Many of you have not seen the outside world beyond academia. You studied in college, then you studied in this, you have seen your professors, and you have seen how they run, what kind of a rat race they run. You have not seen the outside world rat race, right? That's one important point. So please be wary of that there's a more to it than what you think. And there's a certain glamorization of an academic position. Please remember that this is a recent phenomena if you go long back if you go far back in history, right? It started with Germany glamorizing the whole academic pyramid of professors and students and so on and so forth. That is not the most elite job. I mean, don't worry about what your NCBS or your professors tell you, because they have a conflict of interest in telling you that. Okay? There's a lot more to it. Look at all the guys who say a Kiran Majumdar, Shaw, and so on. Look at role models across the board of other people who have done it. Okay? The second thing, recently an entrepreneur came and he asked the question to people, what do you think is the biggest addiction in the world? Any answers? Any answers?
Yep. Can you?
A very senior entrepreneur who came. Okay? Yeah. Want to guess? Huh?
Money.
Well, his answer was a salary.
Yeah.
Salary especially. Okay? It's not necessarily money. In the sense, you're all addicted in many ways to seeing that you get a monthly salary. Right? Think about whether you have to get out of it. One other point I want to tell you, which is, I'm not saying it's a wrong thing, but please think about it a little bit. The other thing I want to tell you is there's a little bit of a mental jump you need to make when you go to become an entrepreneur. Okay, and please, I just want to frame it a little differently here. See, when you're employed, what do you think is the engine that builds value for you? You yourself, your labor, your mind, right? It's you who's doing all that. Now look at, say, a person who's an inventor. What is the engine that builds, or somebody who builds intellectual property? What is the engine that builds value for you? Say a J.K. Rowling. She could have been that school teacher, right? But she decided to write books, and the value engine for her is her IP. Isn't it? So she doesn't care about the job anymore. She doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Right? The value is being created by this. Do you think she feels bad that she doesn't have a day-to-day job? No. Right? She'll never feel that. But you might think that because you're used to it all your life. Or many of us come from first generation, middle class families, will be used to that.
Yes.
Now think of an entrepreneur. What is the value creation engine? Is it the job? Elon Musk doesn't take a salary. Okay? It is the business as an engine which creates value. It is what gives fulfillment to them. Okay? It is not the salary. Right? And that jump, that mental jump, when you're able to make, you'll probably be able to be a much better entrepreneur if you can make that jump. And if you choose not to do that also, that's fine, but you'll be at least aware that that's the jump and that's the boat you missed someday in life.
So,
Yeah, Sudhira was asking about like some parents they have their children having some problem, health, which is genetic related. So there is a dystrophy annihilation research trust was started by a non-science person because the person has a son who has DMD. So he was looking for solution everywhere, he couldn't find it. Then he got in touch and he started to interact with the scientists in Australia and he found antisense oligo can be a probable solution. Went into it, wrote the BIG grant, got it, formed a company. They have molecule now and they are into the, doing a drug delivery to the patients now. So it's not required to do a science to be an entrepreneur, first and foremost, and which is having a bigger impact, right? Yeah.
I want to add just 2 points. Number one, as Srinath said, so for this, every challenge needs to be converted as an opportunity. That is the essential thing. So don't see problem. Oh, I see a problem. Okay, no, the next would be how to actually solve this problem. So that attitude needs to change. And number two, just want to add to this point that in terms of rare diseases or the kind of disease I work with, the social entrepreneurship wherein the society problems need to get solved by us. That I think is the next opportunity that we need to address, because there is a need, there is an opportunity. Government has also provided facilities to address that. So that's.
Okay, especially since you said academic, okay? I'm going to be very blunt about this. The CCAMP is based on the NCBS in STEM campus, okay? A lot of postdocs out there who are, especially in the Welcome DBT scheme, who get very good salaries, are used to funds and all. Trust me, in the last year and a half or so, I've had at least 3 to 4 people who come and say, "Yaar, I'm finishing my postdoc. I'm not able to find a job. I think I'll start my own company." And I'm like ridiculing them. I'm really sorry, I'm ridiculing them. I'm like, so you think running a company, we'll write a grant, I have some ideas. I was like, what ideas do you have? Yeah, yaar, ye technique wala, this, that, like the casual attitude that was taken by these people about, I'm not getting a job, so I'm thinking I'll start a company. Okay, all of whoever is not aware about a company is not a name, okay, and people working at it. There's a whole lot of work which goes behind in terms of compliances, accounts, paperwork, and so that attitude has to change. And I feel workshops done by incubators is very important, where they should make people understand that it is not only about researching, oh, if not in this lab, in fact, I feel it's like, oh, I can't be a PI somewhere. Let me be a PI in my own lab, in a company setting. But what about the other cogs? When your research institute runs, you have support systems. The PI has a support system of an admin office, a grants office, compliances, committees, which is running in the background for that PI, for running the system smoothly without. So the same system has to be built in a company. So that attitude has to change or has to be thought over when, if you get up and say, यार कुछ मिल नहीं रहा है, चलो एक company चालू कर देते हैं. That thing has to change. So when you say how has academics hindered or looked at, these are the things that have to be looked at also.
Right, absolutely.
Want to add one point to Rohan's thing. I think probably less acknowledged is the family of a would-be entrepreneur. Like, for example, as Shambhavi said, it is her husband who actually was there is a support system. So, and most of the times, postdocs, unfortunately in India, an average age of a postdoc is around 30, 35, right? At 35, parents will say, settle hona chahiye na, 35 ho gaya, abhi settle ho jao. So, and by 35, almost PhD ke baad, everybody would be married, right? Almost everybody is married. So, and then 35 ke, by 35 years, 1 year or 2 year ka bachcha bhi hoga, correct? And then you will say, okay, I will become an entrepreneur. Family mein big halla ho jayega na. Everybody will say ki kya hai? I mean, there is salary as a source of income. It gives a stability to the family. And suddenly, if you say one wants to become entrepreneur, it kind of literally changes the financial the calculations of the family. So it is that's the reality. So that is what I would say. My suggestion is, my wife, she has a fixed income for the family. So I can kind of go venture out, do whatever I want to do. I think once or in one family, 50% should have a stability, so that another person can explore. Either it is a male or a female or another. That would be a better way of.
So your advice is choose a partner who is earning a salary if you want
No,
to be an entrepreneur.
just make sure that your partner, you discuss with the
that-
partner,
that's actually
and make sure
wise.
that family is stable.
It's a combined decision that you guys have to take. I guess that's.
That one quick point is you have to plan for all of this. Some people have planned it by working for a few years, creating a corpus to give them some time. Another way they do it is that they mentally have a boundary between what is home-related costs and company-related things. Okay, and they don't cross this boundary. Okay, they know that if this is not working out, you stop, right? But don't affect this other side at all. But that said, please also realize that if once you have a lot of opportunity cost, it's very difficult for you to get into entrepreneurship. Okay, that means getting into a good MNC job with a fat salary is the death blow to entrepreneurship. Be clear, and in that sense, getting a good stipend under the DBT, whatever that Felcom, this thing is also a death blow. Okay, because you find it very difficult to get down from it. Okay, so be ready
People are having
to.
dharnas for it, and you are putting up.
No, I'm just telling you that this is the.
No,
this,
that's a
this
fact.
is the
I
fact.
agree.
Okay, so learn to deal with opportunity cost if you want to be in entrepreneurship, because
Yeah.
I'm sure he must have gone without salaries for several months in the very beginning.
Yeah, I'll just maybe last point, and then we can move on. And Shambhavi and Dr. Srinath had a couple of points to make.
We went Dr. Rao's way first. So Pushkar and I co-founded CloudCrate. And we were like, घर चलाना है, रात को खाना है, क्या करेंगे? So Pushkar stayed with Accenture for a year, and I quit my postdoc to start CloudCrate, and it did not work. The first year it did not work. Okay, so if you're co-founding a company, it is a risk, but you have to do it together. I mean, if Pushkar was not a part of CloudCrate, it would have made sense. But doing two jobs as an entrepreneur does not work. I would not recommend it. I am provided support. We got a stipend from Goldman Sachs, and we got our first seed money, after which he left his job. And only then did we actually see traction for CloudGrid. So don't think that I'll do my postdoc and side me I'll start an entrepreneur thing. It does not work. It needs 100% of your time. It's like having a baby.
Yeah, postdocs are very, they have trained hands. So during, I think in the month of May, there was a meeting where Dr. Renu Swarup had come, and I had put a question in forth of her. Like, we want trained hands like postdoc, but startups cannot give money to them. So I had proposed, why don't you create a opportunity for them postdocs to be hired into startup, a startup pays full money or half money, supported through that. She acknowledged that. I didn't see anything happening in 3 months. Then on Twitter, I again posted and pinned all of them. And what I saw on the first day of inauguration when she spoke, that something is going to happen for postdocs, I'm really happy for that. So we value startups' value, but sometimes the fund is an issue, and I hope that is also to be crabbed out. So more and more people can join startups, as Rohan said, have an exposure in the startup, work for 2-3 years, and then think whether you can go into the entrepreneurship, which I didn't do. I agree, because then I immediately started, but then I realized that's a don't think, right? I'm highlighting don't think. You understand the terms, technologies, and what all are required. For me right now, I'm working with the regulatory part for a longer time, and I'm having 2 employees, so I have to give money to them, So then we have to worry about those things, how to start it. Yeah.
So we'll just end the panel with maybe first let's just go to the audience, and if we have time I'll just come back to you. Any questions from the audience? I would request people to identify themselves, their affiliation, and then ask questions.
Hi, I would like to know what are the funding sources.
Please your name and your affiliation.
I'm Shanta, I'm postdoc from IISc Bangalore. So I want to know what are the funding sources for a startup or something like that.
I think Dr. Premnath.
Sorry, it got switched off again. I think you have put it on switch off, auto switch off, is it?
No, there is
Because we crossed the
an
time
over
now.
there.
Okay, so in India, the funding landscape is a little patchy and depends on the disciplines you are in. Okay, in the very beginning, when you're beginning a company, if you're even conceptualization, there are some fellowships which are available, which allow people to explore some ideas long enough till they crystallize on what idea they want to do. An example of this is something like the Social Innovation Immersion Fellowship from BIRAC, or EIR from DST, and so on. Following some of these, the next rung is where one is looking at developing the proof of concepts for your ideas, and there are grant fundings available like BIG from BIRAC. There's a smaller one for prototyping from DST. There is also Sparsh and so on. Following that, if you want to go further, very often you will have to probably much larger grants. There are few pockets available, but much larger grants will always be matched, which means that you will need to raise some money to be able to get even grants. Okay, so you will end up seeking money in different sources. So you might look at seed funds or angel investors or whatever it is and build some match funding. And even after that, you're primarily looking at commercial funding. Okay, banks are not an option for startups. They don't take risks actually. Okay, so don't waste your time with banks. If you have a steady business with a good revenue stream, then you can go to banks at that point. But till then, this is not usually an option. As an individual, if you're pitching money, only the first 2 options are open. Beyond that, there has to be a company of some kind. Okay, like BIG, they still allow individuals, although we don't recommend that. Okay, that as an individual you take money to do some work. We always recommend that it should be a company, because there are a lot of other complications which I don't have time to go into.
Base program.
Yeah.
For academic.
So if you're an academic and want to look at technology-based ideas, BIRAC has something called PACE, and under that there's one called AIR, which is a 50 lakh kind of a grant to build a technology till a certain point, do the proof of concept. But this is within academia. If you're doing it outside of the academia, then you go for BIG. Okay, there's something called CRS also under the PACE, which is for contract research services. What that does is, if you have an idea, you want to hire services of some companies to do some testing, advanced evaluation, validation, all of that, there is a way to fund that also. So these are in the bio side of things. There's some in the DST funds, a little broader array of things. Then there are things like Indo-US, Indo-Spain, whatever, that you can tap depending upon your own particular networks. By the way, he mentioned networks. Believe me, I agree with him. You'll realize very quickly that that's probably the most important thing around for anything that you do. So build your networks extensively. Angel investment in India is happening. It's not at such a large pace, but between seed funds, incubator funds, which incubator-run seed funds, angel funds, there is some gap that you can fill. Most venture capital firms will come only around, say, post, say, 5 crores and above, okay? So getting that far is a big challenge, okay? And getting it ready for a suitable investment is the challenge. And once you're in that league, hopefully then you can progress it to the next level and take it ahead, okay? And of course, if you can raise money on your own income, that's great, but most companies, especially deep science companies, take time to earn money, and they have to rely on investments to take it far enough, okay? So that's broadly an overview.
Just want to add one more point. From the social entrepreneurship side, private capital is something that is coming up, which happens very frequently outside India, wherein different patient advocacy groups get together, put the money, raise the capital, and that is the seed funding for work. So that is one of the model system that we work with. We are building up the rare disease research fund, to which anybody can contribute, and most of the patient advocacy groups also put in money, and the money goes to like a crore, 1 crore rupees. But then from that, multiple small grants would be given out, and that is specifically to tap in the academia or those that are who are present in academia want to do an industry transition with a POC. Like, I mean, if you need to have a, if you want to apply for a big grant and other processes, generally they will ask for preliminary data just like your grant processes. And to generate preliminary data, you require money as a salary, also as consumables.
Right.
So those are something, those are like, first mile, last mile connectivity sort of thing. There is a metro, but to go to that metro, you need to have first mile, last mile problem. Right. And that is where we are positioning ourselves to solve that first mile problem. Yeah,
So
and that is another option.
So I think you should visit your nearest incubation center, get more information as what all things are available, what suits you. That's also another thing. And as he said, maybe you're a social entrepreneur, you'll have patient advocacy groups funding you. So, yeah, next question, anybody?
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very interesting discussion. I have...
Your name and affiliation,
Yeah,
please.
I'm Chagun. I'm a Science Policy Fellow for Department of Science and Technology. I want to talk about the exit, not about the entry, because the opportunities get into that. I kind of realize this like an analogy of learning to ride a bicycle. We all first learn how to get on and ride it, and most of us, when we are at the beginning of the learning, we do the crash landing. So at what time exactly would you suggest to have an exit plan for any entrepreneur?
I think Rohan...
I have a supplement question to that so that
Please.
you can be like,
Please,
like
please,
answer. See, you cannot just wake up and say that I want to be an entrepreneur, as you said. But at the same time, you cannot just like on the other day you say, I want to stop and I want to like shut off the company, and you have to do some programming in your mind. So how was the programming what actually you went through in that particular phase? So you have programmed something into your mind. And the second question is that you were an entrepreneur and now you're an employed worker. So there's a programming that way too. And one more, that when you, after the entrepreneurship, when you were like, that now you want to be an employed worker. So companies might have think you as a competitor that you have started before, you may start like afterwards. So you are coming here just to know about the secrets. So sometimes, I don't know if that's true or not, but sometimes they consider you as a person who is good in the art and you can do it again. So have this particular thinking you have faced? So
Okay, so I'll start there, come here. So in terms of exiting, I think there's possibly only one reason why somebody exits or shuts shop. One is when uh, you're bought by some other company for well and good. You give WhatsApp was bought by Facebook and they said goodbye. Done. The other is a situation like mine where we ran out of money or we were running out of money. We didn't run out of money, we were running. I could see that our reserves were going down. So the thought process was quite crisp. The planning has to be done. I say one of the first things that we as founders and companies started thinking was also our, what if it doesn't work out? Some will say, oh, you started your death at that time. Maybe, okay, I don't care. But an exit strategy is extremely important either this way or that way because you have to plan it accordingly. So when I had to plan, that's what I said, right? So it was every year, every financial year, every March you get your result out. CA will look at it and say, sir, paisa kam hai, sir, paisa jada hai. Okay, so when you see the CA, see also understand one thing, your accountants, your financial advisors also tell you that I don't think you're doing well. Okay, so you have to listen to these people. You have to talk to your mentor. So I have really good mentors who have a lot of experience, and when you talk to them on a regular basis, that's another advantage of, by the way, being in a bio-incubation center or an incubation center. I mean, I just said bio-incubation, but IIM is an incubation center itself. You get continuous evaluation, third-party evaluation done at no cost basis, and you sort of get a picture about what is happening. So when I have to shut shop, okay, you start getting feedback from multiple places that things are not doing well. Think about it, think about it. So for us, we had planned it, and it so happened that it was, we had to pull the plug. I hope I answered your question. So it's a very planned and thought for thing. It doesn't happen overnight. And the same way, following that, it did not happen overnight. Okay, and we literally checked every possible box. Money, banks, he mentioned banks. Yeah, we did actually walk into a bank and ask. One thing is there. Asking is extremely important. Let it be or no. Nobody's going to slap you. Okay, at the most, kya pagal hai? Kya पूछने आया? Okay, walk out. We went to banks, asked, is there a provision where we can get a loan? Sorry, sir, your statements look bad. Okay, I checked for loans. I checked with family. Family asked, do you want to risk our money? No, check, done. I checked my pockets, no money, no. So it was a plan, it was a process that, when you're shutting shop, you're like, you check all of these boxes. We tried to sell ourselves at as low cost as possible as well. The whole thing, the whole tech. But then we were wondering whether is that worth that value to sell out for, I take a arbit number of 100 rupees when I know my value is much more. So I said, okay, let's close, let's see how it goes about. So that's answering one part where, it's a program process. We were also keeping our employees informed about it. We did not drop a bomb on them. We had told them on a perfect 3 months before I had given them an inkling that things are not going well. I did not tell them that go look out for jobs because I assured them that if we shut shop, I will pick up a job at the end and they will first be employed. And trust me, I did that. I'm extremely proud about that. Okay, I got all 4 people hired at much better salaries than what I was giving them, and then I took up a job. So it was told. It was an informed decision to the whole team. I first asked them when I sat them down there. You know what? We are shutting shop. What's your next move? Do you want to? What do you want? We want a job. Where? What? How? I understood their requirements and I found jobs for them. I'm not saying I did a great job. I helped them. I was not their parent. I left it up to them to take a decision. This was also, by the way, something told by my mentor. Don't act as a parent. Let it not be your responsibility. Right. Okay, it is they who want a job, you help them. Okay, so it was a program process. It was a very, very crisply program process. Moving over to go to somewhere else, obviously questions are asked, what brings you here? I said, not so worked well company. Would you want to go back? I say, yes. I say, yes, I would want to go back, but not today, not tomorrow. What are you here for? I said, to learn the whole concept of the company. Because I did not do it well, I shut shop, right? So I'm there to learn. How much can you commit? Trust me, every person asks, how much can you commit? I bluntly say nothing less than 5 years. Nothing less than 5 years is a commitment I have. And trust me, when your employer is sitting in front of you and he sees a failed, not so worked out well entrepreneur, he knows his pockets are empty. ये तो मेरे पास आएगा क्योंकि उसको salary, his pockets are empty. And trust me, my pockets were empty. It is going to take a long time for me to build up that corpus if I have to go back there again. Okay, salaries are a problem that, now giving up this salary to start again at a point zero is difficult. But I was honest. I said, yeah, I may go back. I didn't say I will go back. I said, I may go back. I'm here to learn. My assurance is to contribute this much to you. And also understand one thing. I'm not a fresher at that point of time. There is that level of maturity that both of us on the table have when we are discussing things. So things are not taken, tu chhod ke jayega, you will learn and go. No. They know you will contribute because they know what you've done over the last 4 years, 5 years. They know you will contribute. It's a trusted affair. Okay. So it is not that difficult. I mean, I don't think people look at it from this perspective that he's here to learn and take it back with him. And there are times when that happens and it's for good. It's for good. Rarely I would go out and take that business with me. I'll take the learnings from there and start something. Simple example. Viral vectors, I used to get towards the end, I used to get a lot of calls asking, do you make GMP grade viral vectors? I said, no, I don't. We don't have that much of a facility. Now, where I work, we need GMP based viral vectors. To make viral vectors, you need GMP grade plasmids. There's not a single company in India which makes GMP grade plasmids. I will learn the concept of GMP. If time permits, if funds permit, I may go back and make plasmids for GMP. GMP grade plasmids and I'll be supplying to my own current company now. So they look at it as an opportunity that they gave me to give it back to them for a cheaper cost. I'm giving you an example. That in the last 6 months, I learned different aspects of this whole story for me to bud out if I want to at some point of time. So one, exit has to be planned. You cannot get up and say, I am done. Okay, it's like a divorce where you cannot literally tolerate each other and you part ways, but you've literally tried hard. So this is where, you've thought about it. You have to check every box before you shut shop. And honestly, every employer wants that skill that you have. And they are happy to hire you. I was hired. I'm not joking. I only had one interview. I met Kiran Mazumdar on one Wednesday. Next Wednesday, I was on board. It took me 1 week. I only met her. I did not meet HR. I did not meet anybody else. 1 week, that is all it was. I met her for 45 minutes and my job was done. And she was the first question. She's the one who asked me, why are you here? You seem to have founded 2 companies. I said, both are not doing well. I'm shutting shop. Okay, what do you want to do? I said, this. Okay, what all assets can you get along? This. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Discussions happened. My HR will get in touch with you. And 1 week is all it is. That's, again, back. A whole 4-year networking took me directly to her table. Nobody else.
Yeah, the networking part is also important here because there's an element of trust which is built over a period of time. Exactly. In the sense that, no matter what happens, protect your reputation. Okay? Even if you fail, it's okay. People know you, right? That's more important. And I think people will know that you're a mature person to deal with such situations.
So do we have time for the one last question? No?
I mean, if we can quickly wind up.
Okay, then we'll just wind it up. And I again thank all the panelists today. A lovely discussion, and I'm sure that a lot of people got inspired. And what we've gathered here today is that there is no set of academic training that is required to be an entrepreneur. I think you just have to, you will know whether you are up to the challenge of being an entrepreneur by just taking this leap of faith and getting into it. Till then, you'll never know. So with that, thank you all, and thank you all of you for being here.
I have some flyers here if people want some information. Sorry, one other thing, there's a funding you asked. So there's a database on Venture Center's site called funding.venturecenter.co.in. It's all kinds of funding, not just anything that Venture Center does.
the quick announcement, couple of announcement. One is those who are staying in guest house, please remember to give your keys at the reception and also put your time of checkout. Then feedback forms, like in the beginning I said, most important, they'll reach you tomorrow morning, and please get back. We'll follow up if you don't, fill up feedback forms. So yeah, so please give feedback as fast as possible. And then
Slides which academicians like a lot. So this is like my from school days to entrepreneurship. You can see my degrees being there. So my MSc is microbiology, PhD is in environmental microbiology of bioremediation. My postdoc is in molecular biology, working on DNA repair systems. Then I taught undergrads at IISc for 5.5 years. Then I went into it. But this is how the change has happened in my life. Now you can see this is a square, and at the end of 45, the square is same, but the edges are cropped. And this is the zone of impact. I am very happy that many of the times, like Prem said, that impact is very important. What I feel is that once I was teaching the students, I had a biggest impact. Because it's 1 into 100, 100 into 500. I have taught 500 students when I was at IISc. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a tenure, or my other colleagues couldn't get it. But then I had to go into entrepreneurship, and then I realized all these assets, which everyone has understood by seeing it, that networking is so important, and you should have the, I don't know, the guts or liver, whatever the word you want to use. You have to have the app for taking challenges. I sincerely say that Rohan has that. He has done it because, failing is there in entrepreneurship, but learning never goes off from that. And this all are other learnings which has been there, I think, in every other's entrepreneur's journey. I'll end up with a happy note by having voting by you guys. So what I want you to do is, please take out your phone and do this, including Rohan. So there is a website which you have to log in, www.menti.com. Go to it. Is there Wi-Fi? I'm using conference, and it is capital ICER@SEP19 2019. Yeah. Correction. ICER in caps @ in small SEP and 19. Yeah, September. An option to add more than one word, and then just enter it, and we will actually get to know number of people who have voted at the end. So I can make a head count of at least 30 to 40. In general, it's about you. Two more, done. Yeah. So I'm seeing a 60-40, if it's to be said, in terms of driven and confused and explorer. So those who are explorer, please, you can be an entrepreneur, according to me. Done. I'll go to the next slide, which is much more tricky. You need not to post, but it is like this. Write one line RIP that you would post for yourself. no, don't write. You have to write for your own part. I don't want that to be shown on screen deliberately, yes, because there's a huge statement then. So right now it is your current state of mind, what is being done. Maybe after a year it will change. You can think about it later on also. Let's go to the next one, which is rate yourself. Bhakti, you are not doing. Okay. Done. So it's obvious everyone wants job stability. There is no lack of planning, let's say, because you are a researcher. Lack of idea is again like everyone has it. I think fear of failure, etc. But I think mainly job security wise, as some of the people said, like having your partner being employed, it's one option. Unfortunately, in my case, it's zero. It's totally, I'm dependent on my father's pension that way, but yeah, it's a risk I have taken for it. Yeah. And this is the last part, to be or not to be an entrepreneur, the final verdict.
Thanks for introducing this one. This is pretty cool.
Yep. I think it's done. I'm fairly happy that it's, you know, maybe versus yes rather than being no. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
All the no's didn't attend this session.
Oh, that's a big chunk. Yeah. Thank you.
So now we're going to give away prizes for the posters and oral presentations. So we request Professor Arnab, Professor Thomas and Professor Sanjeev to come up and hand over the prizes to the poster and oral talks. So we have scored the posters and the oral sessions, but we're not giving away prizes as first, second, third, but we have top 5 scorers in each category. So we'll give a token of appreciation from our from CloudCrate and from Ipsa Jain's art counter. So CloudCrate has t-shirts. They're going to offer an online link where the winners can go and choose your size, and then the t-shirts will be delivered to you. So that link will be provided to you in an email. But right now, we are going to give out these books.
So, I'll first start with the Oral Talk prizes, and I mean, in general, everyone gave a very good talk, but some seem to show a little bit better than this. So, the people who are winning the Oral Talks is Parveen Goel, Abhinanda, I'll just call everyone. Abhinanda Banerjee, Pratik Chaudhary, Dhananjay Chaturvedi, and Shraddha Mehta. Can everyone come on stage? Congratulations to all. Now we'll have the poster prizes. So we'll start with Anushri Chakhalkar. She's gonna come this way. Ajay Tijor, Aditya Parekh, Gyaneshwar Yadav, and Natasha Bua. Congratulations. I think Natasha is not there, so there's an extra book. So I'll just thank all the people who have been involved, and then we'll go out and take a picture before we head for lunch. The third National Symposium, National Postdoctoral Symposium, was organized to encourage networking and provide a wider perspective of career options. And as our symposium comes to an end, we are honored to deliver this talk to all our attendees. First of all, we would like to extend our gratitude to our funding agencies, Welcome DBT, the PSA office, and most importantly, India Bioscience, especially Smita Jain, who not only funded us but guided us in planning this symposium. ICER Pune faculty, Professor Arnab and Professor Shashi, were instrumental in providing support to take the symposium forward on this campus. We also thank Professor Galande, Professor Thomas for their guidance in the organization of the symposium. We thank the ICER Pune faculty who took time to mentor postdocs over lunch and grade the posters and oral sessions. I'm sure many of you have benefited from some of their advice. We especially thank all our invited speakers who took time from their hectic schedules to come and share their experiences and present diverse careers that we can pursue as postdocs in life sciences. All our panelists were eager to share their insights, career journeys, and advice for postdocs who are in the process of figuring out how to choose the next step forward. We would like to thank the ICER Pune staff, the admin, the media center, auditorium staff, photographers, housekeeping and vendors for making the accommodation, food and travel a smooth process. We especially thank Mrinalini Virkar for taking multiple responsibilities to make the arrangements smooth. She is the lady you saw at the registration desk who was helping the postdocs. Most importantly, we thank the participants for trusting us and coming forward to make the symposium a success.
Our aim was to provide avenues to help find jobs. Over the last 4 days, a couple of job opportunities were announced. We hope that this has worked for a few of you in a positive way. We hope you spread the word and encourage more postdocs to attend next year. We would also like some of you to think about organizing this symposium towards the north of India or to the east of India. You can talk to your friends, colleagues, faculty about the benefits of such a symposium, and with our experience of our team, we can help you organize, brainstorm, and help you navigate for the next symposium. And now I'd like to call all the postdoc volunteers who organized this symposium from IISER Pune and NCBS. Please come up on stage. So the NCBS and IISER postdocs put in tremendous effort to make this symposium. This is the team that has been working since the past 6 months to put in a lot of effort to bring versatile speakers, review points. The entire process has been over Skype calls every week, brainstorming between both teams. But the IISER Pune postdocs have put in much more effort in this symposium because the ground level realities of organizing are completely different sitting on an NCBS campus. So I think the food, the stay, your travel, your tickets, the smoothness in the process is all because of the IISER postdocs. So I think a big round of applause only to them. Many of them had to miss the sessions that they wanted to attend only because they couldn't, they were taking care of all the processes outside of this auditorium. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here. We can all head out for a photograph so that we can end the symposium.